Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a music podcast where a group of friends gather together to share music with each other, an album at a time, like a little book club for music. I'm Petey Rave, and I don't have a bandolier of harmonicas, but I do have an empty can of Havana Lager from Concrete Beach Brewery here in Miami that I just polished off, so I got that going for me, which is nice. Here with me is my crew, my team, my squad, my quorum. We've got David.
This episode of the Record Breakers podcast is brought to you by the Thrustmaster HOTOS 2020.
We've got Matt.
I have this empty Irving, Texas coffee cup, about 16 ounces.
And we've got Brett.
I'm more of a jazz goaltender.
Me too. We're here to talk about an album, talk about some music, and the provider of the album is Brett. Brett, what have you brought for us this week?
I have brought to us some more music from the mid-90s. I brought Blues Traveler, the album 4. It's the one that you probably have met in the back of somebody else's mother's caravan in 1996.
Or in a grocery store. Or in a department store.
Or VH1.
Yes.
Oh, God, VH1.
Yeah. Let's talk about expectations. David, what were your expectations coming into this album?
My expectations for this were an album that was way better than its single, because I heard Blues Traveler. I was familiar with Blues Traveler beyond the obvious single that we're all going to mention over and over again, and not this album in its entirety, but I knew that they were better than that one song. And I was ready to dive in. I enjoy diving into an album of an artist that may have had one big song and diving a little bit more into their catalog. So I was ready for this, as PD normally asks right before every episode.
Yes, we'll get to Mountains Win again later in the show. Matt, what were your expectations coming into this album?
I had heard the name, but that's about it. It had blues in the name, so I thought, oh, maybe there'll be something there. But also, I'm the guy who brought Moody Blues, so I should know that, like, just because you have blues in the name does not necessarily mean anything.
Steely Dan doesn't have steel guitars in all their albums. I demand a refund.
No, but they should.
About Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes.
I had heard something about harmonica.
I mean, there's more than one harmonica. There's literally a bandolier of them.
They are legion. I was familiar with the name Blues Traveler, and I know they had a sound, a particular sound, and I knew the couple of songs in abstract. I mean, it could be just my bad memory. I don't know if I've listened to even the singles in their complete entirety before. They're just I think my entire experience with Blues Traveler may in fact be pop culture osmosis. So I had some expectations, but they were mostly third party. Or
you don't remember
party.
the 1996 World Series national anthem being played on harmonica?
No, I remember the 97 World Series and 2003 World Series, and that's all
I'm pretty sure I blocked that out.
I did not honestly know that. It's just one of the YouTube videos that it fed to me. I was like, oh,
so sorry.
I bet I watched that, maybe.
Yeah. They have a couple of like entire World Series games on YouTube. I think official YouTube channels, which is fascinating, but that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about this album musically. Brett, how would you describe this album musically?
I mean, I don't think I've brought an album that had predominant harmonica in it since Bela Fleck and the Flecktones. But this is a little bit of a different use of the harmonica, though there is kind of that mid-90s, like, I'm not just playing the blues. But this is definitely, the songs are mostly just jam songs that it sounds like a bunch of guys sat in a room and played music together for a long time. And they're like, oh, this is fun and catchy. Let's like sing some songs with the harmonies done by one guy, and let's have these harmonica solos that are like ridiculous in a way that, like, at the time I had never heard anybody play a harmonica through a mesa boogie. In more recent years I've sold Fender Champs to people to play harmonicas through, but there's definitely a 90s sound to this in some places. Like it's a very harmonica forward album, but it, like, a lot of people also need to realize that there's also the most effort put into singing that I think I've heard in a while. John Popper, and then the harmonies John Popper does of John Popper, sometimes 3 of them, is crazy. We get scat, we get John Popper scat, and it's all done in that like weird bare naked ladies tone, kind of. But it's definitely its own thing. But like, and then there's parts of songs when I get into songs where like you're tasting the 90s of like alternative rock tone as well, while there's still like, blues jams on this and some like poppy and almost like Western sounding songs. There's some like, it is like radio rock tone in some places.
David, how would you describe this album musically?
I think Brett really hit on a great point about how 90s alt rock this is. Yes, I know we're all gonna fixate on it. Harmonica, 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 harmonica. There, have you all, listeners, Record Breakers fans, have you all gotten it out of your system? Okay. Yes, there's definitely a lot of 90s alt rock, and it is definitely a Pearl Jam contemporary. It definitely has that kind of vibe where it is in that musical space. But you can tell that this band's influences really go different places. There is some influence of almost bluegrass, almost, but not quite, and just different places that you did not hear from 90s alternative rock radio, and it really made it stand out. John Popper's voice stands out. Just as a vocalist, he's very, very different from what you heard at the time. And they have this nice balance of probably fitting in the alt rock section of the Harmony House or CD store of choice, but also maybe not being too abrasive for the adult contemporary radio station as well.
Yeah, this got played on like 4 different radio stations. With I remember this album straddles genre. It has one of each.
Yeah.
It's fluid. There's the word.
Yeah, genre fluid. Matt, how would you describe this album musically?
Boy, howdy, there's a lot of harmonica here. Sorry, David. It's a lot, but it's very well executed. A lot of harmonica though. There was a little bit of organ I heard, which is always appreciated. The biggest thing that came to mind throughout this whole album is when I did pay attention to the lyrics, I was never quite sure how seriously I'm supposed to take them.
Mm-hmm.
I think you know the answer to that. There's a harmonica, and that's being blown. You got to admit, like, if you could do that, like, and have that range of licks to play on a harmonica, like,
oh sure, like I said,
checks.
it was
light it up.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
It's a lot though.
Yeah.
Little goes a long way.
Yeah.
Little goes a really long way.
It's like
Excess is success.
it uses the harmonica as like almost like the lead guitar in a way. It's like I'm gonna do these crazy and like licks and like these like individual notes, and I'm like go and then it's gonna go all these adventurous places. While you can also almost imagine John Popper's formerly big old sausage fingers like
Goobers flying everywhere.
yeah. It's like with his like two microphones, because he has a special microphone for which I just saw and looking up on Wikipedia that he has like effects buttons on it, and like
oh my gosh, that's
wouldn't you?
Yeah, and it's like, all right,
I got feet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But that's
he
what
didn't want to stomp
pedals
that
are
box.
for.
Use like an Axe FX system.
Yeah.
He's modeling stuff.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah, it is fascinating to kind of even look at that when you
Give
look
me a
if you
pitch
look
wheel for my harmonica, dude.
Well, I
By
mean,
the way,
It makes me more
like
uncomfortable the longer I look at it.
yeah,
the standard like guy in a blues band who plays a harmonica has always been like a shitty Shure SM57 that has been drug around for 50 years, and
see
like
that on the
a
top.
Fender Champ that's like this little tiny old little guitar amp that's got a little like 8-inch speaker in it, and that is
to the next
way.
level. Let's
And
go to the next
he's
level.
also
bringing a
that
fucking
one-
Mesa Boogie.
There's also that one green Shure mic with the volume knob that has the 1/4-inch plug. I don't know if those are actually popular or if Shure just really wants you to use them.
yeah. Also the I don't know if I want to call it a fedora or a trilby or whatever the neckbeards want
It's
to call
closer
it.
to a trilby.
It's got the gator
It's somewhere
key.
in between though. It's not a full on. It doesn't have that little backward, that little fold up in the back though.
Yeah, he's like halfway. He manages to make it at least somewhat cool looking, but not completely.
I
he
mean,
has-
forest green felt.
Until you look at those Matt Kessler looking glasses.
yes. Those are
I mean,
pretty
the
fun.
'90s. They're like wearing the Hawaiian shirt and wearing a felt hat had a different meaning back in the
Yeah.
90s.
Oh yeah,
I will never knock a Hawaiian shirt.
That was a different time. It
Hawaiian
really,
shirt
really
was,
was.
always, it was always good, especially when it's Hawaiian shirt time, which is many times. I need to get a Hawaiian shirt. Yeah, let's talk about key tracks. Brett, what would be some of the key tracks for you to zero in on?
Well, I'm gonna go to the tracks that I found fun to listen to because the tracks stand. Like, get some fun wicka chicka wah pedal, and the bass is just like sliding around all day. And like in the middle of the song, Collective Soul shows up and plays a song. And then when they come back, you get a fun guitar solo and John Popper doing scat. So like, just checklist, but like it is so very much the
Somewhere
like,
a young
mid-90s
Jack
guitar
Black
tone.
went like, oh, I should do that.
This
Yeah.
is everything I need.
Yeah.
Crash and Burn, like that is most definitely a song that I imagine they have fun playing. It's one of those songs where you hear it's like, oh, this is what happens when a bunch of musicians get together and make a song, and then like it evolves into a thing they can throw onto through an album. And
That's how that works, right?
not always. Sometimes there's the gross I'm writing this song with the science of earworm like pop music, and then there's like, oh, we're gonna have to fill like 5 minutes in front of the on stage, and we need to be able to noodle over this consistently. So let's do that until we have it honed to a fine point. And I think Crash and Burn was one of those because everybody got their turn to show off their boodle deedles. And Hook, I think, is one of the stronger songs on the album, because it's a very, very simple groove. It's catchy, and the vocals and the harmonica gymnastics are like, they put a cherry on top. They spared no expense on that song. The multi John Poppers were a thumbs up for me.
Yes. Yeah. David, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
I really dug Stand a lot. I wrote in my notes for that one that this was probably way too funky for alternative rock radio in the 90s. It was just way too funky. And yes, John Popper scats, and I'm kind of here for it. I kind of dug it. Freedom. I feel like this is the song that is the best indicator of this album. There's some pretty comfortable groove that they all seemed pretty well entranced in, and we got to hear John Popper really get his harmonica on, and there's actually a guitar solo too, because yeah, you could do that. I think that this is a real defining track for the album. If you want to say what is this album, normally on this podcast we'll mention the first track, but I think it's the song Freedom. Crash and Burn, just a fun 3-minute sprint, and I love that kind of thing. Just the musicians hearing of the gun and then just going boom and just going and not stopping until the song is over. I love that. And the album had a really strong finish with Brother John.
Mm-hmm. Matt, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Freedom. This was kind of the first song that made me really try to figure out. Let me put it this way. I think it's a decent example of Poe's Law, which is a satire of a certain skill, basically, is indistinguishable from the actual point they're trying to make fun of. And so even reading through the lyrics, I couldn't quite tell. And yeah, the singing was a little much for me. Hook uses the most boring chord progression in the world. Mm-hmm. And I can appreciate the meta aspect of what they're doing, because looking at the lyrics, it's all about, oh, if you just have a good hook, then nothing else matters, and that's all people pay attention to. But oh my God, I cannot support it. It is the worst chord progression in the world. I hear it halfway through, and I want to fall asleep.
You have
the good, the bad.
Yeah, I think you are a special case with that chord progression. I think you have more than any of us, even probably me, have heard that chord progression beaten to the dirt. And there's a reason why. It's easy to play licks over. It's especially in this genre. Like you just hammer something out, and it works for a harmonica, which you have to do like linear licks. Like you
got chromatic harmonicas for a reason.
Well,
which apparently I was looking, and John Popper uses the the Hohner Special 20 brand blues harp, calling them the Porsche of harmonicas.
Oh God.
Nice.
But yeah, like I definitely have played this at more than one wedding, but I have tried playing it with a friend of mine as well, this chord progression, and doesn't matter what style we try to play it in, I'm bored immediately.
Some people could say most blues is like that. Some people might be right.
Yeah,
the good, the bad, and the ugly, I just wrote a note to myself saying there is such thing as too much harmonica. Again, very skilled, extremely skilled. I did not realize a harmonica could go that high.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I want to hear it.
It's like the 24th fret. Like
Exactly.
he
like-
used it.
If you give me like this kind of harmonica playing next to the heavy metal saxophone, like I feel like I would just be on a roller coaster, and I'd be
Yeah.
totally up for it.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. Yeah, I mean, like, you guys have pretty much touched on the songs that I would have touched on. The crash and burn. I like the crash and burn. I like it's like the harmonica versus the guitar. Like just kind of like go back and forth a time there, and it's fun. But yeah, it gives a nice amount of time for each part. I like the hook is that song. It's the song it's also the song that makes fun of you for liking it. It's like which is kind of fun in its own sense.
Weird, because I don't remember that song at all.
Yeah,
It was
That's
the
because
second.
it's the most boring chord progression in the world.
yeah. Which I
don't know.
never-
There's 12 bars can get kind of yawny.
Oh, not even close.
There's more variety of what you can do with a 12 bar though.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a memorable. But yeah, Freedom is memorable. Stand gets a nice pace because you kind of come from Run Around, which is the other big single that a lot of people will probably remember. Not as much as maybe Hook, but like it was a pretty big single in its own right. But then it kind of like.
Oh, I'm reading the Wikipedia article on Hook. It's definitely satirical.
Oh yeah, no, it's been known.
That one, there was no question on that for me.
Yeah. But yeah, that one it literally makes fun of you for for liking it. But yeah, and Run Around is like the other hit single, but and then you get into the right pace with Stand, where it's like, okay, this is like the meat of what they do, which is that like bluesy. I wanna fucking masturbate with this harmonica, and you're gonna enjoy it. And
White people
on
blues.
Twitch. We're on Twitch, Petey.
Yeah. Sorry.
Let the white people have their blues. It's
I
fine.
mean, hashtag canceled.
It happened.
It's
we're dealing with it.
It's fine. It's fine.
They can have their blues.
Fine.
Remember where it all started. But yeah, I think those are fantastic tracks. Let's bring it back around the horn. Talk about some conclusive thoughts. David, what would be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
I enjoyed this way more than most 90s alt rock, significantly. I'm going to say that this still had flashes of Pearl Jam, but not to the point where it was grating. I think that the harmonica adds a seasoning and a flavor that really can't be beat. It might be maybe a little too much barbecue sauce for some people, but in this case, I was perfectly fine with just slathering it all over. Just a bunch of barbecue sauce. Loved it.
Yeah, get that sweet baby rays all over.
Yep.
I really like that these guys have albums worth, and they still tour and perform and record, and they're the perfect example of why radio and singles are just a bad form of business, because these guys are great. They're a great band, and they deserve to be successful, if not more.
Mm-hmm.
This was a really good album, and the single was the worst song. The most popular song was the worst song on the album.
Yeah.
And yeah, everything about this album was really, really enjoyable. If that little bite was good, go ahead and get the whole rack, and you just put all the Sweet Baby Rays on it.
Mm-hmm.
Just dive in.
Mm-hmm. Matt, what would be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
There were certainly aspects that I could appreciate. Everyone played really well, but I'm not walking away from this thinking like, man, I'm glad I listened to this. I am better off as a human being.
Oh, that's a
'cause-
lie. You now can tell the difference between Hootie and the Blowfish and Blues Traveler with one harmonica.
Yeah.
I'm still not sure who.
I've never heard
ever
Hootie and the
existed.
Blowfish.
Oh my God.
So I can't tell the difference still.
I'm convinced Darius Rucker has been a country artist his entire life.
That's
Don't act.
Hootie and the Blowfish is one of the bands that I have looked at in the $1 section of half price books and thought, nah.
Nope, it's not real.
I just
Darius
put it
Rucker
back.
has been a country artist his whole life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think at the conclusion, I think this is a fun record. This is a cool record to listen to. It borrows from like tried things. It's not the only blues rock out there. It is not the only alternative rock to be influenced by blues. You can find a bunch of different bands that kind of try that thing, but they don't take the harmonica as seriously as John Popper does. John Popper is a harmonica nerd, almost as much of a harmonica nerd as he is a weapons nerd, and you would have to. I wonder if his harmonica collection is bigger or his gun collection is bigger, but it would be fun to get a tally.
Guess what,
I bet
everybody?
it's like quantity wise, he has more
lived in
harmonicas,
Austin
but
for a
in
while,
terms
too.
of cubic feet,
Yeah,
he
the
has
volume.
more guns. Yeah.
He probably has more throwaway harmonicas than he has throwaway guns.
Yeah.
But I don't know by much. But yeah, this is a cool experience. It's doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it does pull from some really cool sources, and it's fun to listen to. Yeah, the hook does in fact bring you back, which is fun. Brett, last but not least, how would you conclude on this album as a whole?
So if you want like all of the poppy sensibilities of Hootie and the Blowfish, but you want a rotund Dwight Schrute in a felt hat playing a harmonica like super hard, this is it. It's the mid '90s were a time. This is like just before Space Ghost Coast to Coast, when just being cynical and dickish was considered humor. And it honestly, I pulled this album out because I don't know that I've heard this album front to back since I was in elementary school. And I was looking at albums from 1994 recently for obvious reasons. I kind of wanted to come back to this after having knowledge of music and listening to what other things that did not get played on adult contemporary. There are some things here that are neat. There are things that are neat once or twice. But when you do it a lot, you sort of the diminishing returns on being able to play all those licks, slide all the way up and down that harmonica, bend all those notes.
Every single one.
He's like, he lands in the right place though. He lands.
Yeah.
He lands it. Like I've heard so much bad harmonica in my life where they're just sliding through the. Well, I play guitar like that too. I slide through the notes too. But like he had the wind to do it, and like looking at the pictures has brought me more joy than listening to the music. Like pictures of John Popper and Guy Fieri, pictures of John Popper with his bandoliers. Like just the character is more fun. Like, yeah, he's a guy from Ohio that's large, that's not as large anymore, who kind of fits the mold of the mid-'90s. He's not Drew Carey. He's not Dwight Schrute. He's John Popper. He's got a Civil War cannon. He knows how to play a harmonica. And I'm glad that I got to share this with Mr. Walton over here, because, oh my God, this is something you need to have knowledge of. Because this is like heavy metal flute.
Yeah.
Like, you got to know your heavy metal flute. And this is, it's kind of like that. This isn't great, but it's
give me heavy metal flute, heavy metal saxophone, alt rock harmonica. I love it.
And John Popper only slightly looks like a guy who would call you a cunt if you more than 5 minutes to answer back on him and You're a Girl. But only slightly.
I mean,
we're on Twitch, for God's sakes.
I mean, he does seem like he fits the toolish description. But I don't know the man.
I thought Tool was a different band.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a different kind of tool altogether.
In many aspects.
Yeah. But the tunes are good. And he only slightly looks like that, but he's not that guy.
And apparently John Popper tried to steal Fish's 1997 Madison Square Garden New Year's booking using strippers. So like the hits keep coming.
Yeah.
You can't be all bad.
Yeah.
Google's going to be feeding me
He's a
these
good
articles
dude.
for weeks.
Yes. Oh yes. Yeah. Those are our thoughts on Blues Traveler. Now we get to the main events of the evening. We get to our haiku reviews, where we sum it all up in poetic form, with the old 575. Fun times had by all. Yeah, let's get down to the nitty gritty. Haiku numero uno. David, what is your haiku?
It's fun 90s rock. Harmonica is brilliant. Deserves way more love.
Mm-hmm. Matt, what is your haiku?
Not the worst I've heard. Harmonica overload. Get stuffed, Pachelbel.
Say that one more time, that last line, please.
Get stuffed, Pachelbel,
Okay.
Yeah,
who wrote Canon in D,
Yeah.
nice.
aka the most boring chord progression in the world.
Ah.
My haiku. A blues rock jam band goes mainstream with killer skill and a snarky hook. And last but not least, Brett, what is your haiku?
A very large guy, sideburns and felt hat, a throbbing honer.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Can we say that on Twitch? Can we say that?
I think it's borderline. We'll have to see. I'll keep an eye out for the takedown notice. Yeah, those are our thoughts on Blues Traveler 4. You can, of course, find it on our Spotify playlist. Play Record Breakers the home game. Do your due diligence and your due diligence. You can find that Spotify playlist in all of our show notes on the website. Or on your episode notes. There should be a link right there. On the Spotify playlist will be next week's record, and next week's record is going to be provided by Matt. Matt, what do you have for us next week?
I will be bringing an album by guitarist freak of nature Charlie Hunter and singer Lucy Woodward with their album Music.
Mm-hmm. Music. So I look forward to that. You're going to get plenty of music. 3 whole descriptive words of it.
3 whole units.
Exactly. We're getting music cubed.
Musical units.
Yes.
Music cubed. The cubic unit of music. But yeah, that'll be that. That'll be next week, and this is this week. And you can, of course, find us all over the internet. David is at Call Me DJM. Matt is at MRiddickW. Brett is at HibbityBibberd, HIBBITYBIBBARD. I'm at PD Rave. The show's at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com. Rebelli.net for this and other shows. Rebelli TV on YouTube and on Twitch. We live stream these every Wednesday evening. You can watch us record, be in the chat, hang out, follow the channel. We also stream other stuff on that channel, including some space trucking with me and Brett playing Astroneer.
Come on.
Come on, let's go space trucking. We'll have to see if we can survive space
trucking.
We can survive space as best as we can. And other stuff as well. We'll do other fun streams, and I'll play games on there as well. But yeah, follow me there. If you can find us everywhere you find podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, bunch of different places. Just look us up. Like, share, subscribe, hit the bell, slap the walrus, spank the monkey, do all the things.
Rinse the raccoon.
Until next time, hasta los huevos.
Toodaloo.
Hashtag find Luke.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.